In a small town in Arizona, lived a young woman named Sarah Miller. Sarah was not like most people in her town. From a young age, she had a deep love for precision and focus. While other kids played games or sports, Sarah spent her time practicing with her rifle. It wasn't just any rifle, it was the powerful Barrett .50 caliber, a weapon known for its strength and long-range accuracy. Sarah's father had been a soldier. He had served in the army for many years and taught her everything he knew about discipline and respect for weapons. He never pushed her, but he always believed in her. "If you want something, Sarah, you have to work hard for it," he would say with a kind smile. By the time Sarah was 25, she had already made a name for herself in shooting competitions. Her skill with the Barrett rifle was extraordinary. She could hit targets from over 1,000 meters away, something many found almost impossible. But Sarah was not satisfied. She wanted to be the best not just in competitions but in real life, where the stakes were much higher. One day, Sarah received a letter from a special military unit called the SEALs. They had heard about her skills and wanted to invite her to a special training program. The invitation was exciting but also frightening. The SEALs were known for their toughness. This was a chance to prove herself on a level she had never dreamed of before. Sarah packed her bags with a mix of excitement and nervousness. When she arrived at the SEAL Training Center, the atmosphere was serious and intense. Men and women from all over the country trained hard every day. The commander in charge of the program was a man named Robert Johnson, a legend in his own right. Known for his sharp mind and strict rules, Johnson had never seen a woman like Sarah in his program before. On the first day, Sarah joined the group for a weapons cleaning session. The group gathered around their rifles, preparing for the day's exercises. As Sarah carefully cleaned her Barrett .50, Commander Johnson walked by. He stopped and looked at her. "That's a big gun for a woman," he said, a hint of mockery in his voice. "Do you really think you can handle it?" The group laughed quietly, and Sarah felt a sting in her chest. She knew this was not just about the gun, it was about proving herself in a world mostly run by men. But instead of answering with words, Sarah just smiled calmly and kept cleaning her rifle with steady hands. Later that day, the commander made a bold challenge. "If anyone here thinks they can beat my record, step forward. I have made a shot at 3,247 meters. No one has done better." His voice was full of pride and confidence. Everyone looked around, expecting someone to take the challenge. But no one moved. Sarah's heart beat fast. She knew she was capable. She had trained for this moment. But the room was full of doubt from others and maybe even from herself. After the meeting, one of the soldiers came to Sarah and whispered, "You're brave, but you don't know what you're up against. That commander won't take you seriously." Sarah nodded. She understood the challenge ahead was more than just hitting a distant target. It was about respect, belief, and strength. That night, Sarah sat alone in her room, looking at her Barrett rifle. She remembered her father's words. "Hard work and patience will get you anywhere." She promised herself she would not only try to beat the record but also change the way people saw her. The next morning, Sarah began her training with new energy. She woke up early every day, practicing not just shooting but also learning about the wind, the angle of the sun, and how the rifle's bullet traveled through the air. It was science and skill mixed together. Every day brought new challenges. Sometimes, her shots missed the target, and she felt frustrated. Other times, the weather was not right for long-range shooting. But Sarah never gave up. Her determination caught the attention of some of the other soldiers. Slowly, some began to respect her, watching her work harder than anyone else. She was quiet but strong, like the desert wind outside, steady and unstoppable. One afternoon, after a long practice session, Commander Johnson approached Sarah. This time, there was no mockery in his voice. "You're serious about this," he said quietly. "Most people give up before they even try." Sarah looked up and smiled. "I'm not most people." The commander nodded, as if he had just realized something important. That moment was the start of something new. Sarah was no longer just the young woman with a big rifle. She was a competitor, a challenger, someone who could make history. And deep inside, Sarah felt a fire burning, a fire that would push her beyond limits and into a story no one would forget. The days at the SEAL Training Center were tough. Sarah quickly learned that this place was not for the weak or faint-hearted. Every morning, the sun rose over the desert like a bright promise, but the training ground was filled with sweat, hard work, and constant tests. Sarah woke up before dawn every day. She ate a quick breakfast, loaded her gear, and headed to the shooting range. The other soldiers were strong and skilled, but Sarah knew she had to prove herself even more. One morning, after a grueling exercise, the group gathered for another briefing. Commander Robert Johnson stood in front, his arms crossed and eyes sharp. He looked at Sarah with a mixture of surprise and doubt. "All right, everyone," he said. "Today, we'll talk about something important: cleaning and maintaining your weapons. If you don't take care of your rifle, it won't work when you need it most." Sarah nodded quietly. She had always been careful with her rifle. Her father had taught her that respect for the weapon was as important as skill. The commander walked down the line, stopping by each soldier. When he reached Sarah, he smirked slightly. "Let me see how you clean that Barrett .50, young lady," he said. His voice was calm but held a sharp edge. Sarah took a deep breath and started carefully disassembling her rifle. The other soldiers watched, some with curiosity, others with skepticism. She worked with steady hands, cleaning every part with precision. Suddenly, the commander interrupted. "You missed a spot," he said, pointing to the barrel. Sarah paused, looked closely, and then nodded. "You're right, sir. I'll fix it." She wiped the barrel again, this time more carefully. The commander raised an eyebrow but said nothing. After finishing, Sarah reassembled the rifle perfectly and stood up. The commander shook his head and chuckled softly. "You clean a good weapon, but do you really think you can handle the pressure out there? That record of 3,247 meters is not for beginners." Sarah looked straight at him, her eyes steady. "I'm not a beginner, sir." Her answer was simple, but it held more confidence than anyone expected. The commander laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. "Confidence is good. But you need skill and nerves of steel. Let's see if you have them." The group broke into whispers. Some of the soldiers looked impressed by Sarah's calm, but others still doubted her. For the next few weeks, Sarah pushed herself harder than ever. She spent hours studying the rifle, practicing her breathing, and learning about the environment. She learned how the wind could change the bullet's path, how the heat from the desert affected the air, and how small movements could mean the difference between a hit and a miss. Even though the commander often mocked her in front of the group, Sarah used his words as fuel. Every time he doubted her, she felt more determined. One afternoon, after a particularly hard day of practice, Sarah sat alone by the range. She looked at the horizon, where the sun was slowly setting behind the mountains. Her mind wandered to her father's words, "Hard work and patience will get you anywhere." She smiled softly. She knew this journey was just beginning. Suddenly, a shadow fell over her. It was Commander Johnson. He stood quietly for a moment, then said, "You've got guts, Sarah. I'll give you that." Sarah looked up, surprised by the small compliment. "But guts alone won't win you that record," he continued. "You need to show me something real." She nodded, ready for the challenge. The very next day, the commander called the group together for a special event. "This is your chance," he announced. "Show me what you can do. Whoever wants to try to beat my record of 3,247 meters, now is the time." The room was silent. Everyone glanced at each other, unsure who would take the risk. Sarah's heart pounded. She knew this was her moment. With steady steps, she moved forward. The eyes of the entire group, including the commanders, were on her. She took her place behind the rifle, setting it carefully on the stand. The wind was calm today, the perfect weather for a long shot. Sarah took a deep breath, just as her father had taught her, and focused on the distant target, a small flag, barely visible at 3,247 meters away. She adjusted the scope slowly, calculating the wind, the distance, and the bullet drop. Then, with the quiet strength of a desert breeze, she pulled the trigger. For a moment, everything was still. The bullet flew, silent and deadly. The group watched as it hit the target with perfect accuracy. A stunned silence filled the air. Commander Johnson's mouth opened slightly, his usual smirk gone. He looked at Sarah, eyes wide with disbelief. You did it," he said softly. Sarah smiled, feeling a mix of pride and relief. She had done more than just clean her Barrett .50. She had proven herself in the face of doubt and mockery. And she knew this was just the beginning of her story. The shooting range was still quiet after Sarah's shot. The bullet had hit the target exactly where she had aimed at 3,247 meters. The room was filled with disbelief and surprise. Commander Johnson, usually so confident and tough, stood frozen for a moment. The other soldiers stared at Sarah with new eyes. No longer was she just the young woman who had been mocked. She was now the person who had done what no one else could. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then, Commander Johnson finally broke the silence. "That was impressive," he said, nodding slowly. His tone was serious, respectful. Sarah felt a warm glow inside. She had worked hard for this moment. But she also knew this respect was just the start of something bigger. "Thank you, sir," she replied calmly. Over the next few days, the mood in the training center began to change. Some soldiers came to Sarah to ask questions about her techniques. They wanted to learn from her. Even the commanders started paying closer attention to her work. But the challenge was not over. Sarah knew that long-range shooting was about more than one perfect shot. It was about consistency, focus, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. One morning, Sarah woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The commander had arranged a series of tests to see if she could maintain her skill in different conditions. The tests would push her to her limits, shooting from high places, low places, and even while moving. Sarah arrived early at the range, ready to face whatever was next. The sun was bright, and the air was dry. She could feel her heart beating faster than usual. Commander Johnson walked up to her with a serious look. "Today, you're not just shooting at a target," he said. "You're proving that you belong here." Sarah nodded. "I'm ready." The first test was from a cliff 500 meters high. The wind was strong and unpredictable. Sarah had to calculate the bullet's path while feeling the rush of air around her. She took her position, carefully aimed, and fired. The bullet hit the target, but slightly off from the center. The commander made a note but said nothing. The next test was even harder. Sarah had to shoot while lying down in a narrow space between two rocks. The angle was difficult, and the sun was blinding her. She closed one eye, took a deep breath, and fired. This time, the shot was perfect. The commander finally smiled. "Good." The final test was the most difficult. Sarah had to shoot while slowly walking toward the target. The challenge was to keep her balance and focus despite movement. The soldiers watched as Sarah moved carefully. Her hands were steady, her eyes fixed on the target. She fired, and the bullet struck the bullseye. The commander clapped slowly. "You've earned your place." Sarah felt proud but also tired. This was not easy. It was the result of months of practice, sweat, and endless patience. Later that evening, as Sarah cleaned her rifle, she thought about the journey so far. The mocking words of the commander had once hurt her, but now they pushed her to become better. She understood that respect was not given, it was earned. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her father: "Proud of you, Sarah. Keep going. You're stronger than you know." Sarah smiled and replied, "Thank you, Dad. I won't stop." The next day, Commander Johnson called a meeting. He spoke to the group with a new tone, one of respect and seriousness. "Sarah has shown us all what it means to be dedicated and strong," he said. "She has earned my respect and the respect of this team." The soldiers cheered softly. For the first time, Sarah felt truly accepted. But she knew her journey was far from over. There were still many challenges ahead, more tests, tougher conditions, and moments that would push her to the edge. As Sarah looked around the training center, she felt ready. The mockery, the doubts, the hard days, they had all led her here. She was no longer just a young woman with a rifle. She was a sharpshooter, a warrior, and a symbol of strength. And she was ready to face whatever came next. The days that followed Sarah's success were filled with new challenges, but none were as difficult as the one she would soon face. Commander Johnson had announced a secret test, one that would not only measure skill but also character and courage. One evening, Sarah was called to the commander's office. The room was quiet and serious. Commander Johnson looked at her with a calm but intense expression. "Sarah," he began, "you have proven your skill with the Barrett .50 and earned respect here. But now, I need to see how you handle pressure that isn't just about shooting." Sarah listened carefully. "There will be a long-range mission simulation," he explained. "It will test your patience, your focus, and your ability to stay calm under stress. You will not be alone. You will work with a small team." Sarah's heart raced. This was the moment where everything she had learned would be tested in a real-life situation. She nodded, feeling both nervous and ready. Over the next few days, Sarah trained with her new team, two other soldiers named Mark and Lisa. Mark was a steady and calm man, experienced in tactics. Lisa was quick and smart, with a sharp eye. Together, they practiced moving quietly, communicating with hand signals, and staying alert. Sarah found comfort in working with a team. She realized that being a great shooter was only part of the story. Trust and teamwork mattered just as much. Finally, the day of the simulation arrived. The team was given a mission. They had to reach a distant location on a high mountain and take a precise shot to neutralize a target. The mission would be timed, and every move counted. Sarah checked her gear, feeling the weight of her Barrett .50 rifle on her shoulder. She looked at her teammates and smiled. "Let's do this," she said. The team started their journey early in the morning. The air was cold, and the mountain was steep and rocky. The climb was harder than Sarah expected. Her muscles ached, and her breath came fast. But she pushed herself forward. As they moved higher, the wind grew stronger. The cold bit into their faces. Sarah knew this would affect her shooting. Mark pointed ahead. "Almost there," he whispered. They found a small ledge with a clear view of the target far below. The distance was even greater than Sarah's record 3,500 meters. Sarah's hands shook slightly as she set up her rifle. She took a deep breath and began her calculations. The wind, the angle, the cold air, every detail mattered. Lisa and Mark watched quietly, trusting Sarah's skill. Sarah aimed carefully. Time seemed to slow as she focused on the target. Her finger gently pressed the trigger. The bullet flew through the air, a small but powerful messenger. It hit the target, but just barely off-center. Sarah felt a mix of pride and frustration. Mark nodded. "Good shot. But you can do better." Lisa smiled. "We're with you." Sarah knew they were right. The mission wasn't just about the perfect shot. It was about learning, improving, and working together. After the simulation, the team returned to base. Commander Johnson awaited them, watching their faces carefully. He looked at Sarah and said, "You showed great skill and strength today. You didn't just shoot, you led your team. That's what makes a true leader." Sarah felt a deep sense of accomplishment. This moment was different from hitting a distant target alone. It was about trust, courage, and responsibility. That night, Sarah sat outside under the stars, thinking about her journey. She remembered the early days, the mocking words, the doubts, the hard work. Now, she was not just proving herself to others. She was proving something to herself. She was stronger than she had ever imagined. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from her father: "Leadership is not just about skill. It's about heart. Keep leading, Sarah." Sarah smiled. She knew her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face every challenge with heart and courage. The sun rose slowly over the desert, casting long shadows across the SEAL training center. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had faced many challenges already, but today, the commander had hinted at something unexpected. After breakfast, the soldiers gathered in the main hall. Commander Johnson stood before them, his face serious but calm. "Today," he announced, "we will have a test of patience and skill, something that requires more than just good aim." Sarah's curiosity grew. The room was silent, waiting for more details. Johnson continued, "You will clean your rifles, prepare them for battle, and then, you will go into the field. But there's a catch: the weather conditions will change, and you will have to adapt." Sarah knew this was not going to be easy. The desert was known for sudden changes in weather: strong winds, sandstorms, and extreme heat. The soldiers split into groups, and Sarah was assigned with Mark and Lisa again. Together, they prepared their rifles, checking every part carefully. Sarah took special care of her Barrett .50. She remembered the many hours she had spent cleaning and learning every detail about it. This rifle was not just a tool, it was a part of her. After the preparations, the team moved to the training ground. The sun was bright, and the air was dry, but soon, the sky began to darken. A strong wind started to blow, carrying sand and dust. Sarah shielded her eyes, feeling the sand sting her skin. "Keep moving," Mark shouted over the wind. "We have to reach the shooting position." The team climbed a small hill, finding shelter behind some rocks. The wind was stronger here, making it difficult to hear or see clearly. Sarah set up her rifle carefully. She knew that shooting in this weather was one of the hardest things she had done. She adjusted her scope, trying to calculate the wind's effect on the bullet's path. Lisa looked worried. "Are you sure you can make the shot?" Sarah nodded. "I have to try." She took a deep breath, held steady, and fired. The bullet flew into the dust-filled air. They waited, watching the target down below. The shot hit the edge of the target close, but not perfect. Sarah felt a bit disappointed, but she did not give up. The wind howled louder, and sand began to swirl around them. "We need to move," Johnson's voice came through the radio. "The storm will get worse." The team packed quickly and started moving downhill, the storm pushing against them. Sarah felt tired, but she kept going. She knew this test was about more than just shooting, it was about survival, focus, and teamwork. Back at the base, the storm finally passed. The soldiers gathered again, wet and tired but proud. Commander Johnson looked at Sarah and her team. "You adapted well. You kept calm under pressure, and you worked together." Sarah smiled, feeling a deep sense of achievement. Later that evening, Sarah sat by herself, cleaning her Barrett .50 again. The storm had tested her in ways she had not expected. It was a reminder that even the best skills could be challenged by nature. Her thoughts drifted to her father's words, "Respect the weapon, respect the world around you." She realized that being a sharpshooter was not only about hitting the target but understanding the world that influenced every shot. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mark, "Great job today. You're stronger than you think." Sarah replied, "Thanks, Mark. Couldn't have done it without you and Lisa." As she looked up at the night sky, filled with stars shining brightly after the storm, Sarah felt ready for whatever came next. She knew the path ahead would be tough, but she was no longer afraid. She had learned that true strength was not just skill but heart, patience, and the ability to face the unexpected. And with that thought, Sarah closed her eyes, ready to dream of new challenges and victories. The training center was quiet in the early morning, but Sarah's mind was full of thoughts. She had come so far, yet the journey still felt endless. The days of practice, challenges, and surprises had changed her in ways she hadn't expected. That day, the commander called for a special meeting. The entire group gathered under the bright sun, waiting to hear what new challenge awaited them. Commander Johnson stepped forward. His eyes scanned the group before he spoke. "Today's test is different. It's not about distance or speed. It's about heart and decision-making under pressure." Sarah's curiosity grew. He continued, "You will be given a scenario that requires more than just shooting skills. It will test your judgment, your ability to stay calm, and your care for your team." Sarah listened closely. This was new. It was not about hitting a target but about thinking carefully and making the right choices. The group was divided into teams. Sarah was again with Mark and Lisa. Their mission, to protect a small area and help a wounded team member reach safety. The simulation started in the late morning. The desert heat was strong, making every step tiring. Sarah's heart beat faster as they moved through the dry, Rocky terrain. Suddenly, the radio crackled. "We have a team member injured," the commander's voice said. "You must protect and carry them safely to the base." Mark quickly found a life-size dummy representing the injured soldier. Sarah and Lisa helped Mark carry the dummy carefully. They moved slowly, knowing that danger could be near. Suddenly, the team heard a noise, a signal that enemy forces were approaching. Sarah's mind raced. She knew they had to be quiet and smart. She took out her Barrett .50 and scanned the area carefully. "Hold your positions," she whispered. "We protect the team, no matter what." The team took cover behind rocks, waiting silently. The sun beat down, but their focus did not waver. Minutes passed like hours. Sarah's fingers tightened on the rifle. Her breathing was steady. Then, the enemy appeared, other soldiers in the simulation, moving quickly toward them. Sarah aimed carefully, not rushing her shot. She fired once, then twice, each time hitting the target with calm precision. Mark and Lisa provided support, helping carry the dummy and watching their surroundings. Slowly but surely, they moved toward the base, never losing focus. When they finally reached safety, the team let out quiet cheers. Back at the center, Commander Johnson approached Sarah. He looked at her with a serious but approving expression. "You kept your cool. You protected your team. That's what matters most," he said. "Your heart is as strong as your aim." Sarah felt a warm feeling inside, pride mixed with relief. She thought about how much she had grown, not just as a shooter but as a leader. Later, Sarah found a quiet place to sit. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft colors. She looked at her rifle resting beside her and smiled. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. "You're amazing. Proud to be on your team." Sarah replied, "Thank you. We make a great team." That night, as she lay in her bed, Sarah thought about everything she had learned. The challenges had tested her skills, her patience, and now her heart. She knew that this journey was bigger than just breaking records or winning respect. It was about becoming someone who could handle anything with strength, kindness, and courage. And with that thought, Sarah closed her eyes, ready for the next step in her story. The training center was preparing for its final test of the season, a grand challenge where only the best sharpshooters would compete. The entire unit, including Commander Johnson, knew who the crowd would be watching: Sarah Miller, the quiet warrior with a calm mind, steady hands, and an unshakable heart. Word of Sarah's 3,247-meter shot had spread beyond the base. People outside the military community had started to talk about her. News articles called her the silent shot. A few even said she was the future of modern sniping. But Sarah wasn't interested in fame. She only cared about getting better and helping others do the same. Commander Johnson called her into his office the day before the final challenge. "You've changed the way I see things," he said quietly. "At first, I doubted you. I mocked you. But you never complained, never backed down. And now, you've done something no one else has." Sarah stood tall, listening respectfully. "This last test," the commander continued, "is yours if you want it. But it's optional. You've already proven everything." Sarah didn't hesitate. "I'm not finished yet, sir," she said softly. "I want to leave something behind, not just a record, but a reason for others to believe in themselves." The next morning, the sky was clear, and the air still. A perfect day for shooting. A crowd of trainees, instructors, and visiting officers gathered near the long-range field. The challenge, a shot from 3,300 meters, farther than any shot recorded in that training center's history. Sarah approached the range slowly, her Barrett .50 in her hands, the desert dust swirling gently around her boots. She wore no special gear, no flashy badges. Just her usual calm expression and quiet confidence. Lisa and Mark stood nearby, cheering her on. Even Commander Johnson had a small smile on his face. Sarah set her rifle down, adjusted the scope, and went completely still. Her breathing slowed. The crowd seemed to fade away. All that existed now was her, the rifle, and the target far, far in the distance, a white disc the size of a dinner plate, standing against the dry, golden hills. She studied the wind, checked her calculations, and closed one eye. Then, after a long pause, she pulled the trigger. The Barrett roared. A long silence followed. Everyone held their breath. Then ping. The sound of the bullet hitting the metal target echoed through the valley. Direct hit. The crowd erupted in cheers. Some soldiers clapped. Others simply stood in awe. But Sarah didn't smile right away. She stayed still, taking a moment to breathe, to feel the quiet victory in her chest. Commander Johnson walked over to her and shook her hand firmly. "I was wrong about you," he said, his voice honest. "You didn't just break a record. You changed the spirit of this place." Sarah nodded. "Thank you, sir." As the sun began to set behind the hills, Sarah walked back to the barracks with Lisa and Mark. "You're a legend now," Lisa said, bumping her shoulder playfully. "Not a legend," Sarah replied, smiling. "Just someone who never gave up." That night, there was a small gathering to celebrate the end of training. Everyone was relaxed, smiling, and enjoying their time, even the strict commander. Sarah stood quietly in the corner for a while, watching her fellow trainees laugh and share stories. She felt something deep inside, not just pride, but peace. She had started this journey feeling alone, unsure, and judged. Now, she stood among friends, mentors, and people who respected her not just for her shooting skills but for her heart, her patience, and her quiet strength. Before the lights went out that night, she received one final message from her father. "Heard the news. That shot will be remembered. But more than that, I'm proud of the woman you've become. You carry my lessons and now you pass them on." Sarah wiped a small tear from her eye. She looked at her Barrett .50 one last time before bed and whispered, "We did it." Epilogue: years later, young recruits at the same training center still talk about the day a calm, determined woman made the 3,300-meter shot. They speak not just of her aim but of her heart. Her name is remembered not because she was the loudest or the strongest but because she showed them all what it meant to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. Sarah Miller's legacy lived on. Not just as the woman who cleaned her Barrett .50 with care, but as the one who changed everything with a single, perfect shot.